For us, it's been tough, you know, let's admit it, it's been disappointing, but there have been mixed results.
Obviously, we need to gain support, and I tell you, compared to 2 years ago, we're doing our best, doing well.
It's mixed results. I'm disappointed we've lost seats because our candidates and our councillors have worked so hard.
We came within 5,000 votes of winning the West of England, which everyone said was impossible.
Yeah, it's been a tough night, but it's mixed results and it's all to play for in terms of the general election.
As far as the general election is concerned, we're not even at the half time. We will see what happens when the whistle is blown for full time.
It's not unusual to try and put a brave face on bad news, but some days it's harder than others. Hello, good evening. With just over a month to go before a general election, Britain's main opposition party, Labour, is moving backwards. They've lost seats and they've lost mayoralty contests, and they've lost all over Britain. They've lost to the SNP in Glasgow. They lost to the Tories in the north of England. They lost to nameless independents in South Wales, all former heartlands. For a party whose proud activists call themselves Momentum, there was a noticeable lack. Here, in other words, is a party slipping further away from power, not towards it. Some solace for Labour, perhaps. UKIP had a worse time of the local elections today. The party that clambered aboard a wrecking ball and smashed it through the British political system emerged with just one councillor re-elected today, a lone soul in Burnley. And for the Tories, sober faces masking an extraordinary set of results. Tonight we analyse the new political landscape and ask what it could spell for the election in June. Our political editor, Nick Watt, is in Birmingham. Let's start with the Tories. Theresa May really doing what she set out to do, Nick.
Yes, that's right, and here I am in Birmingham, where the Conservative Party have ventured into Labour heartlands by capturing that West Midlands mayoralty. And if you take that result and combine it with the results across Great Britain, it looks like the Conservative Party is heading for a decisive victory in next month's general election. And it's very interesting, they are now moving back into parts of Great Britain where they really haven't had much of an impact for the last 25 years. And the Conservative have an 11-point lead in the projected national share. That is higher than Margaret Thatcher had at this time in 1983 and 1987, and that was followed in both those cases by landslide general election victories. Now, Conservative ministers, they are saying there is no complacency. You could always make a mistake in the next 5 weeks. But I was speaking to a cabinet minister this afternoon who said to me, interestingly, Theresa May's gamble on that early election was the right one.
And your thoughts then on Labour tonight, Nick?
Well, the Labour Party are saying that they are still in the game. They are saying that 11-point Tory lead is narrower than the opinion poll lead. And they're saying, look, they won the Greater Manchester mayoralty in Liverpool decisively, but senior Labour figures in private are in despair. They think the party is heading towards a heavy defeat next month. And in a sign of just how dysfunctional the Labour Party has become, Jeremy Corbyn headed to Manchester this afternoon to celebrate Andy Burnham's victory, but the new mayor, well, he was otherwise engaged. So, on this historic day, we decided to take a look at the 5 lessons we've learnt from today.
The people of Britain have spoken. The political ground has shifted and Britain is on course for a realignment in next month's general election. But just what have we learnt from the multitude of elections across Great Britain?
Crowing by ministers has been banned by Number 10, but they now have little doubt that Theresa May's decision to call an early general election will pay off. Strange to think that just a few weeks ago, some ministers were wondering whether her gamble was really that wise.
Now ministers are drawing parallels with Margaret Thatcher's landslide victories in 1983 and 1987. She triggered those contests a few days after success in the local elections.
Theresa May had no such luxury. She had to go earlier because ministers felt there was a short window before the Brexit negotiations are properly underway. Theresa May's two core messages at the launch of her campaign for the Tory leadership here in Birmingham last July are paying dividends. Her pledge that yes, Brexit would mean Brexit has won over UKIP voters, and her insistence that the referendum result was a cry from people who feel left behind by globalisation has won over blue-collar voters from UKIP and Labour. In the home of the patron saint of Mayism, Joe Chamberlain, the Tories achieved their best win of these elections.
Street, Andy, the Conservative Party candidate, is duly elected as Mayor for the West Midlands Combined.
Andy Street's success in the West Midlands mayoral contest showed that the Conservatives are now on the march in Labour heartlands. The giants of the Labour movement would be stunned as bastions fell. Red Clydeside in Glasgow and the land of Nye Bevan and Michael Foot in Blaenau Gwent. But Labour did win the mayoral contests in Greater Manchester and Liverpool, giving the party some hope that urban areas may save it from meltdown on June the 8th. UKIP changed the country by laying the ground for the Brexit vote. But in their success, they may very well have put themselves out of business. On the other side, there was little sign of a bounce from aggrieved Remain supporters for Britain's two most pro-European parties, the Liberal Democrats and the SNP, who both experienced mixed results.
Nick, you end there with Nicola Sturgeon. Just talk us through the SNP's fortunes today. Do you agree that we've reached peak Nats, in the words of Ruth Davidson?
Well, possibly you have. I mean, it's interesting. You heard there in my report there that Labour, the party of Keir Hardie, has lost control of Glasgow. But what is really interesting, and they might be talking about in a few decades' time today, is the return of the Conservative Party. 20 years ago, they were wiped out in Scotland, and today they are back. And back in unexpected places. There's a Conservative councillor now in the Fergusley Park ward of Paisley, one of the most deprived areas of Scotland. And Ruth Davidson, the leader of the Scottish Conservatives, she says that her party is now unquestionably the main party of the union in Scotland. And she is hoping that in next month's general election, she will pick up tactical votes from people across the spectrum who do not want to have a second independence referendum.
Nick, thanks very much indeed. Nick Watt there in Birmingham. The West Midlands, Tees Valley, Derbyshire, Lancashire, South Wales and Glasgow, these were the places they used to weigh the Labour vote, so certain were they of that heartland support. Well, today they saw them slip out of their grip. This map from The Guardian shows the Labour councillor gains, the red dots, and this one shows the Tory councillor gains. As you can see, they are pretty much everywhere. So where does Labour believe they'll win the general election? Labour's campaign manager, Andrew Gwynn, joins me now from Salford. Very nice of you to join us, Andrew Gwynn. Let me take that to you. Based on what you've seen today, do you still believe that you can win the general election?
Well, of course, we fight elections to win because we are in this game to change Britain for the better. So before a single vote has been cast for the general election, of course, we are fighting for every single Labour vote in every part of the United Kingdom that we will be contesting.
Do you believe you can win it, set on this result?
Well, of course, you have to believe in politics that you can win, and I do believe we can win if we get our message across, our policies across, if Labour candidates, if Labour Party members hit that ground. Let's dust ourselves down. We've taken a bruising today in parts of the country, and I pay tribute to those Labour candidates and Labour councillors that have stood for the party and sadly not been elected.
But you're the head of campaigns now. You recognise, presumably, you're going to have a pretty radical shift in terms of how you get that message out now. What's going to happen?
Well, of course, we have got 5 weeks to change the course of the next 5 years. That is a massive challenge, but it is one that I'm up to, and it's one that I know many of my colleagues are up to. What we've got to do going forward is we have got to obviously launch our manifesto, get our policies out there. We've got a transformational vision for a Britain that is very different to the society we live in now, a fairer, more equal, more just society. And I'm confident that if we can get that message out
the
to
truth
Labour...
is, those policies are out, aren't they? I mean, we have heard a lot of you campaigning on the issues. You've talked police numbers, a lot of numbers. You've talked schools, you've talked NHS, you've talked the crisis. These are presumably what you want to be talking about, yet that message still hasn't got through to voters today.
Well, that's just the start, and I urge you to wait until the 16th of May when we will launch our manifesto, and you will see that there are some pretty radical and forward-thinking policies in there. But I don't doubt that we have got a challenge on our hands. It's our duty to make sure that we fight for every single Labour vote, that we fight to make sure that as many Labour MPs are returned to Parliament on the 8th of June.
The trouble is, for Labour, that you haven't got
to win.
You haven't got certain members of your party, many members of your party behind you, as you know. Anna Turley, the MP for Redcar, wrote this morning, "We've a lot to learn from the Tees Valley result. The Tories have decimated Teesside," her words, "but people still didn't want to trust us." The same kind of message from Sean Simon, who, of course, lost the West Midlands. Traditional working class votes want a simpler, stronger message. They want patriotism, hard work, law and order. Do you concede that that simple message, whatever the message is from Labour, isn't getting through?
Well, I absolutely know that candidates like Anna Turley, rooted in her constituency, will be fighting for a Labour victory in Redcar. I support Anna in that. We need Anna to be returned to Parliament, and we need many more Labour MPs back in Parliament. And absolutely,
but we know
have
what
to
you
get,
need.
we
but what I'm not
absolutely
hearing
have to, well, we
from you is the
absolutely-
sense of how that could happen now. I mean, this is presumably a wake-up call. You've got a month to go. We know that you want to return MPs to Parliament. We don't know how you're going to do it, and we don't know what is going to be radical enough for you to get a message across through Jeremy Corbyn, through John McDonnell, which hasn't worked so far.
Well, firstly, be patient. Let's see what's in that manifesto. But secondly, of course, we have lessons to learn. We've also got lessons to learn from the areas where we did well in the local elections. Places like Greater Manchester, where the Tories were defeated in their own areas. For example,
and where your candidate didn't even wait around to see his leader turn up.
The Conservative candidate in Greater Manchester, the leader of Tory Trafford Council, didn't even win in his own council area. So we have got lessons to learn, both bad and good, from these elections. I'm not complacent. I'm looking very carefully at how we build on those issues and we get our message across.
But you
in the
have to
5
be more
weeks
than
left.
not complacent, don't you? I mean, just step back from this for a second. You are trying to replace a government that has imposed 7 years of austerity. It's failed to meet immigration targets. It's failed to reach its deficit targets. It's failed to solve a crisis in the NHS. And you are moving backwards. You are losing your Labour heartlands. You can't begin to make gains in a situation like that. What's gone wrong?
Well, we are making gains in part of the country. I mean, we increased our majority in Swansea. We had a landslide in Greater Manchester and in Merseyside, including in parts of those cities.
Who doesn't believe in Jeremy Corbyn.
Including in parts of those city regions that do not traditionally vote for the Labour Party. So there are lessons to learn both from the poor results in parts of the country, but also from some of the good results in part of the country. Now, we've got a job to do in the next 5 weeks, and I am fully focused on making sure that we get that Labour message across, that we want to build a Britain for the many, not the few, and I'm confident that my colleagues in the Labour Party will be doing their bit to make sure that we return as many Labour MPs and hopefully on the 8th of June a Labour government.
Andrew Gwynn, thank you.
Thank you.
Now, whilst the results have been coming in across the UK, the two candidates vying to be the president of France have been pitching for votes on their last day of campaigning. Despite the best efforts of the far-right candidate, Marine Le Pen, centrist Emmanuel Macron has a substantial lead in opinion polls ahead of Sunday's poll. Gabriel Gatehouse is in Paris for us tonight. Take us through what you're seeing and feeling there, Gabriel.
Emily, turnout will be key on Sunday. Emmanuel Macron's vote is broad but soft. So that is to say that in a recent poll, 60% of people who said they were planning to vote for him said they were only planning to do so because they didn't like the other option on offer. Marine Le Pen's vote, on the other hand, is narrower, but it's firmer, and her supporters are energised, so a low turnout could work in her favour. Who trusts the polls these days, I hear you ask, after Brexit, after Trump? Well, we've had a dry run at it here in France, and in the first round, the opinion polls actually turned out to be pretty accurate. We're not in the predicting business, but the fact remains that one candidate is 20 points ahead in the opinion polls of the other. So we've been taking a deep look at Emmanuel Macron and asking what his candidacy might tell us about politics today.
The Whirlpool factory in Amiens makes washing machines. Not for much longer, though. The workers are fighting to save their jobs, but they know it's a lost cause. Next year, production will move to Poland, where labour is cheaper and labour laws more liberal.
The battle for the Whirlpool factory at Amiens really encapsulates what this whole campaign is about. It's a straight fight between the globalists and the nationalists. And Emmanuel Macron is not equivocating here. He is on the side of globalization.
Amiens is Emmanuel Macron's hometown. He came here last week with a stark message that he couldn't promise to save their jobs. It didn't go down well. Unemployment in France remains stubbornly at 10%. Protesting is done in a certain style. There's beer and pork chops. Mr. Macron, the local boy made good, is not popular.
Nous, on fait partie du petit monde, du petit peuple. Lui, il fait partie...
De quoi?
La grande société, du grand monde.
La seule qui parle de nous depuis le début, c'est Marine Le Pen.
Et la plupart de votre collègue, il va voter pour Le Pen?
Ici, oui, beaucoup, 80%, oui, c'est sûr.
In an era of rising populism, Emmanuel Macron is that most despised of creatures, a former banker turned technocrat, a pro-EU, pro-immigration liberal. And yet, he's the favourite to win on Sunday. So who is he really? Aquilino Morel was a senior advisor to President Hollande when a 34-year-old Macron appeared as if out of nowhere to take the second most powerful job at the Élysée Palace. He was seductive, charming and clever.
Il avait cette caractéristique qui est assez singulière, d'être à la fois indiscutablement membre de l'élite et en même temps, pour la grande majorité des citoyens, il paraissait neuf. Neuf parce qu'il n'avait jamais été élu. Je suis nouveau et je vais vous débarrasser de toute cette vieille classe politique que vous ne supportez plus et dont vous ne voulez plus. Donc il a joué des deux, très intelligemment.
France is divided. Emmanuel Macron is running on a programme of economic liberalisation, reform of the labour law, shrinking the state. Marine Le Pen wants tariffs and increased welfare spending. These are the battle lines in an election in which neither of the two traditional parties has a candidate. Macron owes his rise to François Hollande, who adopted him as his political son. Over the past 5 years, Gérard Davet chronicled his presidency, interviewing him more than 60 times. When Macron left the Socialist Party to run for president, Hollande saw it as a betrayal.
He has a face of an angel, but inside is not an angel. Inside is very ambitious and he wants to succeed. And if he had to kill the father, he could do it. He did it. He's like a Machiavelli from this century.
Emmanuel Macron, of course, isn't the first successful politician to exhibit a ruthless streak. But what bothers some people about him is precisely the speed of his success, the fact that he appears to have come from nowhere. In Amiens, the provincial town north of Paris, where he grew up, we visited the Lycée de la Providence. It was here that he met the woman he would later marry, his drama teacher, 24 years his senior. Renaud Dartvel and the young Emmanuel Macron were drama students together.
He was friendly, easy to talk to, but he was also, in a way, secretive.
They shared a passion for the theatre, but on the subject of his secret love, Macron never confided in his friend.
In fact, we never spoke about it. And I think maybe we're good friends because I was not the type of guy to ask about this kind of things. Press conference.
Like everyone we talked to, Dartvel speaks of Macron's charm. But is it genuine, or is he still acting?
Both, really deeply both, because his desire to help people, to help his country, to serve his country, is bound up with his desire to be centre stage.
In Amiens town centre, Emmanuel Macron has his supporters. But if he wins the presidency, he will do so outside of the party system and without a parliamentary base. And that is likely to be a problem. Recent attempts to reform the labour law have been both ineffective and unpopular. If Macron becomes president, expect more protests. But if he does, no one will be able to say they weren't warned.
Vous aviez des présidents en France qui faisaient la politique inverse de celle pour laquelle ils avaient été élus. Ce qui rendait les citoyens fous furieux, exaspérés et, si vous voulez, à bout de résistance et de nerfs. Là, Macron, il va faire, pour le meilleur comme pour le pire, il va faire la politique pour laquelle il aura été élu et la politique qu'il aura sollicitée de ses concitoyens. Ça, c'est quelque chose de nouveau.
Across Europe, the old duopoly of centre-left and centre-right is looking vulnerable. In France, it may have had its day. The new battle between the globalists and the nationalists will not be concluded with this election, whoever wins on Sunday.
Gabriel Gatehouse reporting. The noisy boy band that is UKIP fielded some 146 councillors for re-election today. They ended the day with just one. So are they suffering second album syndrome? Is there anything left for them to do now, or should they quietly disband, pack up and go home? David Grossman has been having a look at them.
Is UKIP a political force that has run its course? Like the abolitionists, the Chartists, the Anti-Corn Law League and the suffragettes. All of them faded away when their principal aims had been secured. Indeed, it's hard to read last night's results in any other way, just months after the party secured its single-minded objective, an almost complete wipeout. All the seats it was defending lost, a single council seat gained.
It was disappointing that I didn't get back in. But, UKIP, unfortunately, people are voting Conservative or Labour because they think Brexit's finished.
So has the music stopped for UKIP. This is Boston in Lincolnshire, the most Brexit-supporting part of the UK. The county started the night with 13 UKIP councillors, but not one dodged the drop. UKIP voters, it seems, part of a stampede to the Conservatives.
From being 18, I always voted Labour, and my family was all Labour. I've never ever voted for Tories, but we started voting for UKIP and now they've sort of done their job, so I like what the Tory party has to say much better than Labour now, so it'll be Tory for me from now on.
I like what Farage used to say, but I think, like I say, their job's done now, so, and I like Theresa May now. I think she's about the only one who's talking much sense and you can believe in what she's saying.
Membership of the European Union has been a disaster for us. We all know this.
UKIP was founded by academic Dr. Alan Sked as a pushback against European federalism. Popular support grew from its campaign to stop Britain joining the euro, still remembered in its badge. But it only really took off after the huge wave of Eastern European immigration hit the UK after 2004. UKIP's big electoral breakthrough came in 2009. They came second in that year's European elections, and their estimated vote share in the council elections held on the same day was 9%. Fast forward to 2013, and UKIP turned in its best domestic performance with 23% of the vote. They slipped a bit the following year, but came first in the European Parliament elections. In the general election of 2015, they got 13% and 3.8 million votes. But yesterday, post the Brexit referendum, their projected vote share has plummeted to just 5%.
I think it's over for UKIP. Job done. We were instrumental in making sure we got the referendum. We played a part in making sure we won the referendum. Now what we need to do is make sure that May has a mega mandate on June the 8th to make sure that she gets on with it.
So might the party that Nigel Farage helped found now go the same way as the anti-slavery movement commemorated in this Westminster memorial?
If, in 2 years' time, we haven't got back our territorial fishing waters, immigration is not under control, we're still paying billions of pounds every year to the European Club, then having raised people's expectations to this level and having not delivered, you could see a UKIP stronger than it's ever been.
UKIP's current leader, Paul Nuttall, has declined all requests for interviews today, but in a statement said the party had been the victim of its own success. It's hard to believe that in 2 decades UKIP went from this to altering the course of the nation's history. Few would argue that we would have had the EU referendum without it, and yet there is no gratitude in politics, and if UKIP want an encore, it will have to continually renew its relevance.
David Grossman there. Well, Gerard Batten is the UKIP MEP for London and the Brexit spokesman. Joins me now. Very nice of you to come in. We did hear from Theresa May today and Corbyn and Farron and Sturgeon and I think from the Greens and Plaid. We didn't see Paul Nuttall at all. Where is he?
I don't know. I've exchanged messages with him today, but I don't know exactly where he is in the country.
The rumour was he was hiding in his house.
I don't think so, no.
He's done that before, though, hasn't he? He goes into hiding when he doesn't want to face people.
No, he's had a very busy time, and I think he's entitled to a bit of a rest after this, which is why I'm on here talking to you tonight.
He's the leader of your party, and he can't be connecting very well with voters if you've only managed to get one.
I'm the Brexit
elected.
spokesman, and I think what's going to be really relevant in this, as was being discussed there, is, you know, we, as Paul said, a victim of our own success.
Yeah.
This is, you know, politics is a funny old business. We have the Conservative Party with this surge of votes purely on the back of 24, 25 years of hard work by UKIP and the fact that we got the referendum, the fact that we won the referendum, and this is probably the most undeserved political victory in British political history. We have Mrs May, who was a Remainer, Conservative government that can campaign to remain in. They've now got the task of taking us out, and where UKIP is going to be relevant is because very soon it's going to become apparent that Mrs May is not going to deliver a Brexit that the people thought they voted for.
What Nigel Farage said is, if in 2 years' time. It's quite hard, isn't it, to write a manifesto called the If in 2 years' time party. I mean, clearly people like the track she's on because she's had an extraordinary electoral day today. So they're not coming back to you for the If in 2 years' time.
I think it's not. I don't think it's going to take 2 years. I think it's going to be much quicker than that, because if you read the government's white paper on what they plan to do, what they plan to do is to actually take us out of the EU in name, but in substance we'll still be members.
We're looking at an election that's in just over a month. Now, how many candidates are you going to field? You've lost one of your key donors. You don't seem to have the voter base
Hasn't
left.
been a key donor for a very long time. And
Have
he
you
never
got the
was,
money then to
he
field,
never was.
what,
we always
500
come up with the money. Don't forget, we don't have big business, we don't have the unions, but we've always come up with the money to fight
So
elections.
how many candidates will you be
I don't
fielding
know,
then?
because I don't know how many they're going to be, because I'm not at the centre of the planning for that. We fielded about 600 last time. We'll put as many in as we possibly can. Yes, we're suffering from this problem that people think that Theresa May is going to deliver Brexit. We're talking with this with our own voters,
but you could just say,
activists.
our job's done. You know what? An amazing electoral success. Job's done. Pack up. Go home.
Our job is to get Britain out of the European Union. What's happened since last June the 23rd? Absolutely nothing, except they triggered Article 50, which is the wrong way to go about it anyway. Nothing's happened. Nothing's going to happen for another 2 years. And at the end of that, not a single law repealed, not a single law amended, the entire body of EU law incorporated into UK law.
So if that is the gist now of your job, is it right to go on fairly odd minority issues like the banning of the burqa? Is that going to be helpful to UKIP
I think that, personally, I think that was a press conference that was planned a very long time ago. Unfortunately, it then looked like we were leading the campaign on it, which we're not. It was just an issue, and if it had been up to me, we would have pulled that. But that's
so you don't want to run as an anti-Islam party?
We're not running as an anti-Islam party. There are elements of that. It's about cultural integration that we're running on, and actually defending people's rights under our laws and our customs.
Right.
That's what that's about, and that is something that is a part of a bigger package. And if we made a mistake, it was making it appear we were leading on it, which we're not.
But even, I mean, a month ago you were writing, weren't you, that we should stop calling it Islam, we should return to what the West used to call it Mohammedanism. It's a death cult born and steeped in 1,400 years of violence and bloodshed, perfectly rational fear of Islam.
Yeah, and which part of those factual statements would people argue with?
Well, I guess the voters are arguing with it because they heard you say that, and you've only got one re-elected councillor tonight.
I don't think that was. I don't think they didn't vote for our councillors in this election because
you
of
don't
speeches.
Think that's a turn-off at
because
all?
Of speeches I've made in the European Parliament. I think the reason that we lost is because so many people actually do think that our job's done and think that Theresa May is going to deliver. Our job isn't done, and Theresa May isn't going to deliver.
So why isn't Paul Nuttall out here then making that message clear? I know you said he's having a rest, or he's in his house, or he's locked up, or something.
No,
but
I didn't say that. You said that.
No, you said he probably needs a rest.
I said he needed a rest. I didn't say locked up in his house. You said that.
But we are in the middle of a general election campaign.
He's run a very difficult campaign.
Right.
He's had a very disappointing day. He's probably with his feet up having a drink, watching me doing my bit on here.
The hard one's yet to come. We've got
all the more
a
reason for
general
him to have a
election.
rest on Friday night then.
Right. So you don't have a problem with that?
No, I don't. Paul works very hard. I see him work very hard all the time, and I'm happy to come and do this tonight and talk about where we're going on Brexit.
It's not really whether we see him, it's whether the public sees him, isn't it? It's whether he feels out and about, and what, from today's result, you'd suggest there has been a failure to connect somewhere along the lines with the voter, wouldn't you?
I wouldn't say it's a failure to connect. You've seen people on there tonight saying that they think, UKIP's job's done. And in a way, that's because we were so successful in doing what we did, in getting the referendum and winning the referendum, and so many people who actually think that Theresa May is going to deliver this Brexit, and she is not. Because if you look at what they plan to do, at the end of 3 years after the referendum, hardly anything at all will have changed. Nothing will have changed, and we're seeing all these ridiculous stories about paying them 100 billion euros, or pounds is it, I'm not sure, which I think was entirely cooked up between Mr Juncker and Mrs May anyway.
Who the voters trust, do you? That's the bottom
Well,
line.
I'm not sure in the current climate that they trust many people.
Right.
The one thing that they can trust UKIP is to do what it says, because that's exactly what we've done for 25 years.
Joe Batten, nice to have you in here. Thank you. Well, we have assembled a new political panel as befits the new political era. Paul Mason, Guardian journalist, columnist, is here now, as is Ian Dale, LBC radio presenter, and Polly Mackenzie, special advisor to Nick Clegg until 2015. It's great to have you all here. Paul, this was an overwhelmingly good day for the Tories, wasn't it? You presumably concede that.
I think it was an overwhelmingly good day for hard Brexit, because what we've seen this week are dramatic events of substance. This has not been a week of flim-flam in politics. Theresa May picked a real fight with the European Union, walked away dramatically from a diplomat. Yeah, but she did her own bit, and walked away and created a diplomatic situation, which I think has dramatised in the minds of former UKIP voters the whole situation. We've got a de facto alliance of Tories and UKIP, and that's new. And that can win any election it wants to.
So the Progressive Alliance isn't going to work?
Well,
then?
this redoubles for me the need for that half of British politics that believes in progressive politics, globalism, internationalism, anti-racism, anti-Islamophobia, part of what we just heard. We need to stop fighting each other. We need to work out, and it's entirely possible, how we can stop that Tory-UKIP alliance taking Britain off the cliff edge into an economic catastrophe.
Into WTO rules, which isn't a cliff edge.
Well, if you want WTO rules, let's see the Tory manifesto calling for it. Because that's the risk for Theresa May.
Nobody's saying that they want to go down that direction, but it's not the disaster that people try to present it as, because it's the way we trade with the rest of the world, as you well know.
Ian, if you're right, and if this is going to be directing towards a pretty big majority in a month's time, this is the chance for her to do an absolutely radical manifesto, isn't it? She could push through pretty much anything she wanted. Will she? Should she?
I don't think she will. Up to now, the thoughts about Theresa May have been that she's been a very cautious politician. But I think over the past few weeks, she's proved to be anything but a cautious politician. First of all, by calling the election. Second of all, by doing the speech on, was it Tuesday or Wednesday, in Downing Street, where she really took the fight to the European Commission. And Paul is right. I think it did have quite an effect. Now, this talk of a Tory-UKIP alliance, which I understand why Paul says that, is actually just the Conservatives trying to win back all the UKIP votes that they've lost over the last 25 years.
I mean, that's right. It's not really an alliance. It's like a sort of Doctor Who alien. They've absorbed the entire corpus of UKIP voters within the Conservative. Well, exactly. You know, that's what parties do. Yeah. The Labour Party sometimes sort of sounds like it doesn't want anybody who's ever voted Tory to ever vote for it because they're sort of toxic.
But Polly, where is the Remain vote then? I mean, why? It's not going to the Lib Dems. Clearly, there hasn't been, presumably, the resurgence that you were expecting. Where are the Remainers in this? Or
well, it's been, you know, no question, a sort of disappointing night for the Lib Dems, and who would have hoped to do better. And especially in those Leave areas, it's proved that it's, you know, it's not possible to just sort of win back areas that the Lib Dems had once before. But in Remain areas where the Lib Dems have got presence, there have been kind of points of light, really good results for the Lib Dems. But, you know, Paul's basically right, which is something I don't think I've ever said before, that we need to find a way. None of the parties of the left have really anything to challenge Theresa May, her popularity, her kind of her poise. There's something about her that people really like, and something needs to change if she's ever going to stop being the Prime Minister.
I get staunch Labour voters ringing in my radio shows saying, I've voted Labour every election that I could do, but there's something about Theresa May I like. And when I ask them what it is, they can't explain what it is. And I think that's a very interesting phenomenon.
Maybe it was lists of foreign workers. Maybe that was lists of foreign workers who were going to expel from the British workforce. That played quite well among some racist voters. But let me.
What are you saying? All Tory voters are racist
voters?
Sorry, Amber Rudd, Theresa May. The whole Tory conference was a racist horse and pony show.
You see, this is why Labour can't actually make progress.
Let me say something. We can stop it. But Labour has to change one thing it's doing.
In 4 weeks?
Yes, absolutely. It needs to talk about Brexit. The one thing Labour is doing wrong, that YouGov polling in the last 2 days showed all party voters, the number one issue for them is Brexit. And for most of them, the number two issue is immigration.
So you're saying that Corbyn and McDonnell should stop the talk of the NHS, stop the talk of police numbers?
They need to reframe it as what kind of Britain you want after Brexit. I think their instinct is to do that, but the instinct of the kind of Labour machine is, when Theresa made that speech, the instinct of the Labour machine was, don't talk about it, don't respond, because it's about something we haven't really... an issue we don't own, and they need to own that issue.
But that's because Labour is deeply split on whether we should be leaving at all, and exactly what kind of approach that you should have, whether it's a free market approach or a very kind of socialist approach.
Let me briefly answer. I think today proves that any attempt to win back that part of the electorate that is very pro-Brexit is a fool's errand for Labour. Look at Manchester. Andy Burnham won in every ward, almost every ward. And Manchester's full of Tories. There's plenty of Tories, plenty of skilled workers, plenty of middle-class people. Just by appealing to the inner soul of progressive politics, Burnham did really well.
But he's also walked away
Sean
from Jeremy
Simon
Corbyn
said,
tonight.
wasn't it? They just want a traditional, simple message. That was what he said. You know, he lost in the West Midlands. Patriotism, hard work, law and order. Is that where the Labour vote is?
No, I'm not. I don't.
But you've just called part of the Tory vote racist, and
well, I'm sorry, Amber Rudd and Theresa May at their conference wanted us to make lists of foreign workers.
But this is about voters now, isn't it? I mean, they were your voters before they went to UKIP, before they went to the Tories.
No. See, this is what I'm saying. The Labour movement, Labour Party, is a line drawn through working class communities between people who support globalism, internationalism, and anti-racism, and people who don't. It's always existed. And we will fight that battle in favour of our principles. It's just that we need... fighting the Lib Dems at the same time is the wrong thing to do. And the Greens and the SNP. We should be on the same side.
Ian, the truth is that if you have now got these blue-collar workers, the people that voted Brexit, that were left behind, that saw wages stagnant, she's really got to deliver for them. Not just about Brexit, which may not solve all the problems, but about everything else in their life.
Well, of course, everyone wants politicians to deliver. And the reason Jeremy Corbyn isn't delivering at the moment is because he hasn't got a positive vision. We hear all of this doom and gloom about poverty and all the rest of it. And of course there are problems in society, completely get that. However, if you're a politician that can't do what Tony Blair did in 1997 and offer a positive vision, the sunny uplands, to the aspirational middle classes, you are not going to win, because you can't just win appealing to people who have massive problems in their lives.
So is Tim Farron the aspirational sunny uplands candidate who's from the Progressive Alliance then? I mean,
Tim is at least got a clear and coherent vision, and he's got a party that's pretty unified behind it, and he's full of kind of optimism.
Could you have an alliance with anyone else, do you think?
The challenge for anybody who wants to form a political alliance is not wanting to constantly draw lines and tell other people that they're racist or that they're patriotic or they're not patriotic. And that, I think, is the challenge for anyone who's involved in politics, who is kind of naturally very tribal and wants to sort of point out all the differences. And I don't think, to be honest, I don't think there's anyone outside of the Conservative Party, who's doing a brilliant job at unifying all sorts of people who disagree with them, who's managing to do that, kind of looking beyond themselves and trying to collaborate.
If you look back in history, all successful political parties are effectively coalitions. Exactly. They build coalitions of people who believe in 60, 70, 80% of their policy platforms. Even Theresa May won't believe in 100% of the policy platform she puts forward, no doubt. No one ever does in their own party. You look back at Reagan, you look back at Clinton, they appealed to people outside their own parties, as did Thatcher and Blair. Jeremy Corbyn's not doing that at the moment. Theresa May looks to be the most successful politician at doing this.
There is no aspiration when you look at Jeremy Corbyn.
Absolutely not. I mean, look, you interviewed a Labour spokesperson earlier who said, wait for the manifesto. This is a great frustration for many of us on the Labour side. We have a democratic process whereby we have to get the manifesto passed by a committee. I think that manifesto will be exactly what you want, aspirational for not just poor people, but for middle-class people.
But we've had no policy so far. All of the policies have not been aspirational.
I would agree that there's been a series...
There was a 20-point plan earlier this week.
What will come, I think, will be a 4 or 5 point plan that has to out-drama the drama queen of Downing Street, and I think it will, and that's why I'm still hopeful we can stop a Tory government.
We've run out of time, but thank you all very much. Thanks for coming in. Well, what a pretty exciting day in politics it was today, wasn't it? We wouldn't want you to take that adrenaline high with you to bed. So we thought we'd send you off with a reading of something from The Boring Conference, being held tomorrow. A selection of highlights from a list of every sneeze one man has made since 2007. Sleep well.
1. Office spare bedroom. Birmingham. Moderate. Cropping an image with Photoshop elements. 2. Office spare bedroom. Birmingham. Moderate. Checking credit card statement on the internet. 2202. TV living room. Moderate to strong. Detonating an angry bird. 2203. TV living room. Moderate. Reading Amazon reviews by, not about, James Ward. 4703. Kitchen. Moderate. Vegetarian hot dog style sandwich is prepared. 4704. Kitchen, moderate to strong. Bins. 4705.
Hello there, there's going to be a lot more cloud in the sky across England and Wales for the first part of the weekend. So maybe the odd early shower for Wales, Midlands. But the main area of rain will be down across the southwest of England. Further north,